Welcome, students, to the third grade violin class. My name's Miss Cavallero. I teach third grade violin, but I also teach fourth and fifth grade strings classes. We will be holding our violin class online here in Google Classroom until school is back in session. So to keep up with all of your violin class materials, you should check back to Google Classroom at least one time per week. Today's lesson will be about the parts of the violin. So let's get started. The first part of the violin that you need to know about is this top part of the violin. It's called the scroll. The scroll is really decorative. As you can see, it looks like it swirls around a bit. And an interesting fact about the scroll is that it is the only part of the violin that is simply there for decoration. You have to admit, all the parts of the violin are very fancy and pretty and decorative, but all of the other parts of the violin actually serve a purpose besides just being decoration. The scroll is the only part of the instrument that is just there to look nice. The next part of the violin that you need to know are these. These are called the pegs. P-E-G-S, pegs. Now there are 4 pegs because we have one for each string. And the purpose of the pegs is to tune the violin. So when you turn a peg up, it tightens the string and it makes the pitch higher. When you turn the peg down, it makes the string loosen and it makes the pitch go lower. So the pegs are just to tune the strings. Now you have to be careful. If you turn the peg too high, you go up too far with it, it is possible to break a string. And if you turn the peg too low, it's possible for the string to fall off, to become very loose and fall off. So, when it comes to violin class, the teachers will always tune the violins. You'll never need to worry about that. But it's good for you to know and to remember that the pegs are there to tune the strings. The next part of the violin that you need to know is this part of the violin. This part of the violin is called the neck. And attached to the neck is this long, thin, black piece of wood, and this is called the fingerboard. And the reason why it's called the fingerboard is because violinists press their fingers down up against the fingerboard to change the notes on the instrument. So let's review the parts of the instrument from the beginning. Ready? And you can say the parts of the instruments right out loud with me. Okay? Here we go. So this top part of the violin is called the scroll. These are called the pegs. These are called the strings. This is the neck. And the long, thin, black piece of wood here is called the fingerboard. Were you able to remember all of the parts? Hopefully, let's move on to the next part of the violin. So this main part of the violin here, this hollow wooden part, this large part of the violin, we refer to this as the body. B-O-D-Y, body. So we have the neck and the body. And the body is made of 3 pieces of wood. This front piece is called the face. The side pieces here, they're called the ribs. This side, it's called the back. I'll bet you could have guessed that one before I even told you. All right, let's review the parts from the beginning. Are you ready? This one's called the scroll. These are the pegs. Those are called the strings. Then we have this part, which is called the neck. And attached to the neck is the thin, long, black piece of wood, which we call the fingerboard. This main part of the instrument, the main hollow wooden part of the instrument, is called the body. And the body is made of 3 pieces of wood. The front piece we call the face, the side piece we call the ribs, and this side of the violin is called the back. Good work. Now let me tell you some important information about those parts of the violin. So one thing that you need to know about the violin when you use it is that you always hold the instrument by either the body or the neck. You're never lifting up the instrument or picking it up or playing it by the pegs. You should never pick up the instrument by the fingerboard. These are all very delicate parts of the violin that you shouldn't be lifting and holding by. The 2 most sturdy and stable parts of the instrument are the neck and the body. So whenever you're picking up your violin, you're always going to pick it up by these 2 parts. And you may have even noticed that as I'm holding my violin, those are the parts that I'm always lifting and holding by. All right, let's take it from the beginning. We're going to review these parts one more time. I'll bet you if you've been missing some that you're going to get it this time because we've been doing so much review. So let's try it. Ready? This part is called the scroll. These are called the pegs. These strings. This nice sturdy part of the violin where you can always be holding it. This is called the neck. A part of the violin that's a bit more delicate is this thin black piece of wood. We call it the fingerboard. The main part of the instrument, another really sturdy part to hold by, this is called the body. This front piece, we call it the face, ribs, and back. Good work, students. Let's go on and learn the next part of the violin. So here you have this very thin piece of wood here. This is called the bridge. B-R-I-D-G-E, bridge, just like London Bridge, for example. The purpose of the bridge is to hold the strings up so that they can vibrate. And a really interesting fact about the bridge is that it is not held down to the violin with glue, so it is not glued down. Actually, I'll bet you could guess this even. The pressure from the strings is what holds the bridge in place. So just a reminder, when you're lifting and holding the violin, you're always lifting and holding by the neck and the body. You're never really going to be lifting it up by the bridge because it's such a thin, delicate piece, and also since it's not glued down, it could fall over, and so we want to avoid London Bridge from falling down, if you know what I mean. All right, let's learn the next part of the violin. So down here, this black piece here, this is called the tailpiece, and I want to draw your attention to these 4 little knobs. And maybe you can even see when you look closely like this that each one of them is attached to one of the strings. These are called fine tuners. 2 words, fine and tuners. And just like the pegs, the fine tuners tune the strings. So when you turn them up, it makes the pitch of your string higher. When you turn them down, it makes the pitch of the string lower. And again, you might have remembered I said this earlier, but the teachers will always be helping with the tuning of the violins, so you don't necessarily need to ever use these in class, but it's good for you to know what they are. Now, finally, last but not least, this part here, this is called the chin rest. Can you say chin rest? Nice work. Now, I've been teaching violin for a lot of years now, and you know, I always thought it was a bit strange that this is called the chin rest, because the right way to hold the violin is not in front of you like this with your chin on the chin rest. Doesn't this look kind of silly? This is not the right way to hold the violin. Actually, the violin goes over your shoulder, and when you put your violin correctly over your shoulder, your chin doesn't really line up on the chin rest at all. It's actually your lower left jaw that lines up on the chin rest. You see what I mean? My chin is here. It's not even touching the chin rest at all. But anyways, that's what they call it. They call it the chin rest, but you might catch me sometimes calling it the jaw rest instead of the chin rest, because to me, I think that makes a bit more sense. Anyways, let's take it from the top. I want to review all the different parts of the violin. You go ahead and follow along and try to say the parts with me. Ready? Let's begin. This part is called the scroll. These are the pegs. These are strings. This is the neck. Attached to the neck, we have this thin piece of wood called the fingerboard. The main part of the instrument is called the body. We call the front piece the face. We call the side piece the ribs. And we call this piece the back. Resting on the face of the violin here is the bridge. Nice work. And then down here we have the tailpiece. On the tailpiece we have these teeny tiny little screws. Those are called the fine tuners. And last but not least, we have this piece, which is officially called the chin rest, but I like to call it the jaw rest. Anyways, students, how did you do? Did you remember most of them? Feel free to watch this video as many times as you like to review the material. I will also post in the assignment section a short assignment where you can test your knowledge. So check it out. I hope you have a great week. Don't forget to check back weekly for more assignments and more videos. Talk to you next time. Great to meet you. See you next week.